Hello, International Grandmaster Ron W. Henley here with extended bonus coverage of Round 11 of the 2012 World Chess Olympiad that just concluded in Istanbul, Turkey. First off, thanks all our subscribers for taking time to view our videos, thanks to the organizers for a fantastic event, and to the players for producing some seriously interesting chess. Also, special thanks to Rex Sinquefeld and the St. Louis Chess and Scholastic Center for continuing to sponsor our men's and women's team from the U.S. On our extended coverage here, we're going to take a look at Board 4, where America's youngest Grandmaster, Ray Robson, playing white against Grandmaster Bartlomiej 2594, opens with a Sicilian, and eventually the queens get exchanged fairly quickly here. Now, black plays knight to g4, chasing after the white dark squared bishop. And of course, this bishop can't move because bishop c5 or something along those lines might be unpleasant, or e5 followed by bishop c5. So, what actually happens here is Ray plays queen to b6, offering the trade of queens. Point being that black trades queens, these pieces will be a little bit boxed in. So of course, if black's going to trade queens, he wants to trade under a more favorable circumstance. He moves his queen up one notch, and now bishop to d4 to preserve this bishop. Black plays e5, which does attack the bishop, but also weakens the d5 square. Bishop back to e3, and now bishop e7. White plays h3, forcing the knight to make a decision, and after knight takes, queen takes, d6. g3. And we have a fairly equal situation here where black has a weak pawn on d6 and a hole on d5, but he does have the two bishops, which offer long-term compensation. The last move here, g3, probably envisions h4, part of a kingside advance, as well as a possibility of bishop h3 looking to exchange the light-squared bishops. And here, black plays queen c5, and this is uncharacteristically passive play from black. When I wrote Crushing White the Sniper, one of my favorite games was game 57, where GM Masija, playing black in this game, just crushed GM Al-Madahaki in about 35 moves. And if we remember, in this very same Olympiad earlier, Madahaki is the guy who upset Ivanchuk early in the tournament. So my thinking here is that with the hole on d6, well, the hole on d5 and the backward pawn on d6, black should absolutely keep the queens on the board. He should play something like bishop e6, and then, for example, knight d5, bishop d8, and this way he retains some possibilities of eventual counterplay the longer the game goes. Plus, he's going to castle kingside and throw his pawns forward with b5 and a5. This would be much more in keeping with the spirit of the Sicilian defense. Instead, after queen takes c5, dc5, he simply has a slight positional disadvantage, which is a bit passive and inconsistent with playing a double-edged sharp opening like the Sicilian. Ray plays h4, possibly thinking about bishop to h3, and after bishop to e6 here, probably bishop g4 would be a little more interesting to try and interfere with white's smooth operations. But after bishop e6, Ray now has the interesting choice. Knight d5 is played in the game, or bishop h3, offering to exchange. For example, bishop and rook takes, then the hole on d5 is pretty pronounced, and black's left with the clearly inferior bishop. After bishop h3, rook d8, well, you could just exchange. And this type of endgame is known to be extremely unpleasant for black. You do not want to have to defend this type of position against a Karpov, Anand, Kramnik, any of those players. But anyway, after bishop e6, knight d5 is also quite good. Rook d8, and now he simply reinforces the bishop with bishop c4. Note, of course, he could play knight c7, knight e6, and this is also slightly better for white as well. But bishop c4, bishop d5, bishop takes d5, and now we have very interesting and very favorable 2 rook plus bishop of opposite color endgame, where we can see the white bishop just has this fantastic permanent outpost on d5, where he influences play on both wings. Be sure to check out in round 11, Gadakamsky on board 2, after a king walk, managed to eke out a victory where he started out with 2 rooks and bishop opposite color in an absolutely dead equal position and managed to squeeze out a very nice win as well. So in fact, the superb technique in those 2 games is really the margin of difference in the match with the USA and Poland. So let's see how Ray does it. Again, I might mention this interesting ending was won no less than 10 times by Karpov throughout his career. And in Hastings, 1972, he actually won this endgame 3 times in the same tournament. So black plays rook b8. Notice that if b5, bishop check, rook takes, rook d1, white has all the initiative. All of the black pawns are vulnerable, and the rook is boxed in the corner. So black plays rook b8, c3, king up, b5, and now Ray starts playing very nicely, plays on both sides of the board. After c4, he plays ab, ab, and then rook a1. From a1, the rook can go to b, a5, a6, or a7 as needed. Bishop to c5, touching the pawn on f2, and now f4. E takes f4. G takes f4, and rook at f to c8, and now h5, just inching forward on the king side. King to f8, and now rook a6. Bishop back to b6, and then rook h3, rook c7. The other thing in these endings is a lot of times there's a little bit of toggling back and forth until you figure out exactly which moment to try and break through into the enemy camp. So Ray shows tremendous patience here, not rushing the action, and now plays rook to the d file. After bishop e3, he now plays rook e1 attacking the bishop and giving white a chance to go wrong. f5 might have been theoretically better, but with rook e1 he's giving white a chance to grab the pawn on f4, but after rook f1, bishop h6, rook check, king d8, rook check, and rook mate. So it's always good to give your opponent as many chances to go wrong. However, after rook e1, black would do very well to consider rook b6, and he's probably pretty close to equal. The point being is you would now have to exchange the rook, because otherwise he is going to be able to snap the pawn and play rook f6 if needed. But instead, black played bishop back to b6, and now white continues to make progress in the center. After rook c5, bishop e4 touches the pawn on h7, and here again black played g6. In retrospect, g5 was really the ticket, and this is probably still maintaining the equilibrium for black. Instead, after g6, rook d1, and now black gets the idea to play g5, but he's lost a valuable tempo. Ray pops in with rook d6, attacking the bishop. Bishop goes to c7, and now rook at d to c6 forces the exchange of one pair of rooks. And after rook takes, we can see white has the initiative. He's attacking h7, he's attacking c7, and after king d7, he plays rook f6, rook e7, king e7, and then bishop d5, putting the pressure on f7. But let's take a look. After rook f6, suppose he'd played g takes f4, trying to exchange things off. Well, then we have the very nice variation rook f7 check, king back, keeping the bishop protected, pawn to e6, f3, rook d7 check, king c8, rook h7, f2, rook check, forcing the bishop into a pin, and e7. On king c8, e8, f1, and queen c6 check with the epaulette mate. So going back after rook f7, f6, threatening f7, king e7, and now bishop d5. Rook f8, and now I really like what Ray does here. The advantage that white has is superior mobility, the ability to swing back and forth and attack on both sides. And we see Ray use that to perfection here, much the way Anatoly Karpov used to. Rook to c6, king d7, f takes g5, rook g8. Note that bishop e5, rook check, and bishop takes f7 just gives white a solid extra pawn. So in the game, after king d7, f takes g5, rook g8, he now plays rook c5. Ray realizes that if he can capture on b5 and capture on c4, like in the Gadakamsky game, he will have two connect past queenside pawns, and that should be enough to guarantee the victory. Here, black plays bishop takes e5. It looks like rook takes g5 is the logical move, threatening both pawns. But then comes a shocking e6 check. F takes e6, bishop takes e6 check, and rook takes g5, cleaning house. The b5 pawn falls next. So after rook c5, excellent resource by white, bishop takes e5, and now another shot. I mean, Ray really played this like a virtuoso. g6. The pawn on b5 is still under observation, but now he takes advantage of the pin from d5 to g8. Black plays rook b8, protecting his pawn on b5, but note that hg6, bishop f7, and we have an attack on the rook and an attack on the bishop, with an easy win for white. So after the fantastic shot, pretty much the winning move, g6, black played rook b8, and now bishop takes, and again he's attacking the bishop. Bishop goes back, and he takes, and now he has a solid two-pawn advantage with the b5 pawn under attack. King over, bishop g6, king d6, rook g5, b4, bishop f7, eyeballing the pawn on c4, bc3, and now black's only hope is to get rid of the pawn on c3 and then possibly maybe make some kind of draw. For example, like in a king and bishop opposite color ending or something, where he manages to maintain the blockade. However, Ray very astutely defends his last queenside pawn with rook back. He retreats, and then rook to g8 forces the exchange of bishops. Notice he could play bishop to g8, or he could play bishop c4, rook h7, rook check, and bishop e2. This is also winning, with two outside passed pawns that are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 files apart. This is an easy technical win as well. However, what Ray did is quite nice. He exchanges down into a rook ending. Notice that bishop f6 would run into rook g6, rook f7, and h8, queening due to the pin on the bishop. After rook g8, rook takes f7, rook h8, we now have this interesting ending where white has two extra pawns and threatens to simply check and queen a pawn. Therefore, black plays the only move, rook over to d7. So now a little bit of a dance here, because the white king threatens to penetrate to g6, after which it'll be all over. The white king also threatens to penetrate up to d4 and snag the pawn on c4. All white has to do is get in one check and queen his pawn, so that means that the black rook has to constantly protect his king from being checked from behind. So after king d2, king e5 is check, king e3, and now rook e7 protecting his king. Notice that rook d3 check would be a classic blunder, because king e2, rook d7, rook check, and lights out. So after king rook e7, now he tries to flank with king f3, but black checks and then plays rook e7 again. However, after rook f7 check, Ray could have gone in directly for king g4. If rook g7 check, king h4, and it's pretty much all over. And after king g4, if king f6, then rook c8. Not king f4, king g7 check would be a major oops and white would even lose, but after rook c8, rook h7, rook check, and rook takes c4, this is a well-known winning rook ending. According to Fritz, white's actually 5 pawns up in this position. So after king g4, rook check, king h4, this is pretty much winning. Let's go back. But in the game, Ray needed a little more time to work things out. He played king back to e3. And on rook e7, dropped back. Again, he could play h6 here, but he dropped back. Check, king d5, and now, with more time to think about it, he hit upon the winning plan. He played h6. King back to d6, king d2, king e5 check, king e3, rook e7, and now we come to pretty much the same position they had before, but again he triangulates a touch. He could again go with king g4, but he goes king e2, and now king e3. He now forces the black king to give way. Very nice triangulation touch that Ray employed. So, if king f5, of course, then simply king d4. Dual threat to grab the pawn and to give the check. So after the very nice king e3, the black king is pretty much forced to give way one way or the other, or backwards. In the game, he chose king d5 check, but now Ray's king turns the corner on this side. And then king g5. And after king e5, now the point is, Ray sacrifices his pawn so that after takes, king g6, and we can see the white king, passed pawn, and rook simply overpower the lonely black rook. The finish was rook a7, h7, rook check, and king g5. So what I really like is the patience and the maturity that Ray showed in taking his time, not rushing in prematurely once he got a winning position, and figuring it out to make sure he nailed it. Congrats again to the U.S. team for a fantastic run at the gold medal and their final 2.5, a half, 1.5 victory over Poland. Thanks to everyone for watching and your continued support of the U.S. team and OnlineChessLessons.net. I'm Ron W. Henley. Thank you again.